week 3 of college football is finally upon us. And I say finally because this week has been looked at by everyone in the offseason as one of, if not the best week in college football, at least in the first half of the season. There's so many good games. And week 3 is always interesting because usually the first 2 weeks we kind of get a really good sense of where teams are at. Either if they're overperforming or underperforming, whether they're inconsistent or consistent, what the best parts of their teams are, what the identity of their teams are. So we know the matchups that we get in week 3, and that is what we have in front of us. We have so many awesome games in each time slot. I am so excited for this week. I think it's going to be awesome. So many good games. I can't wait. Laundry list, of course, there always is one. It's a late night here in Tuscaloosa. It's about 11:33 p.m., so Will is getting some shut-eye, and it's wise for him to. I believe the Packers just beat the Commanders. I believe NC State just beat Wake Forest, and NC State is now 2-0 in the ACC. Never to be overlooked. 2-0 in the ACC is not an easy thing to do, so shout out NC State for that. And we are diving in on this Thursday night with our Week 3 predictions. Me and Will have both predicted our 10 games. Now, just an update on the standings. I started out hot. I was 9 for 11 the first 2 weeks, and then I got smoked in week 2. Now I'm 13 for 21. I'm still ahead of Will. Will's 12 for 21. He was the opposite. He had a really slow start, but he was great in week 2. So hopefully I can bounce back. It's tight right now. It's really tight. A lot of tension here in Preston Place because, it's we both want to win, and that's true. It happens. But we're gonna start Friday night. Huge game in my opinion in the Big 12, because every game in the Big 12 is a big game because no one knows what the heck is going on in the Big 12. I mean, 1 minute you have Arizona State, the favorite, and then they lose to Mississippi State. You got Utah, who people now think is the favorite. Texas Tech's been balling out. TCU killed North Carolina. Iowa State's 3-0. So no one really knows. Colorado and Houston, these are two interesting teams. Colorado, of course, lost week 1 to Georgia Tech. That was a good game. A lot of people don't remember that game. That was a good game. But a lot of that was because Georgia Tech kind of gave Colorado a chance. They turned it over, of course, 3 times in the first 7 minutes. Georgia Tech did to Colorado. Credit Colorado for taking advantage of that, but they still lost the game. They were losing at halftime after getting the ball turned over to them 3 times in the first 7 minutes of the football game. I think that's crazy, but sort of an interesting thing to look at for this game. For Colorado's side, of course, coming into the season, their starting quarterback was Caden Salter, the transfer from Liberty. Everyone was kind of talking about, is he going to work with Deion Sanders? Is he not? How's he going to fit? Well, he was not bad against Georgia Tech. I'll be the first to say he wasn't spectacular, but he didn't turn the ball over. He made plays on 3rd down, which is not an easy thing to do in college football. It's not very often you get a quarterback that can make big plays on 3rd down. Salter did. But he wasn't a great passer. His downfield accuracy and his ability to stretch the field and beat you vertically really wasn't there. And that also remained to be the case against Delaware. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, Caden Salter got benched against Delaware. He played terrible. Oh, he was so bad. That's why he got benched. Now, I disagree with that. I'll just read you his stat line. He was 13 for 16, 102 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. He had a rushing touchdown, so give him credit for that. But in my opinion, this reeks of timidness from Caden Salter. To me, it smells of I don't trust my downfield passing game enough to push the ball down the field, and that is a problem, especially in the Big 12. That could be for any number of things. It could be for the offensive line, and respectfully, that could very well be it. Because I don't know if y'all remember from last year, but the offensive line really was holding this offense back from being an elite offense in the Big 12. And of the times that I watched the Georgia Tech game with Colorado, it seemed to me that they didn't really improve that much. So that could be the reason why. That could be the reason why Salter doesn't want to throw the ball down the field, is because maybe he doesn't trust his offensive line to give him that time. Just for a reference point, in the game against Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech had 0 sacks. So a lot of that was Salter being able to scramble around and make plays, but I don't know, maybe it's not the offensive line. It could be the lack of an elite wide receiver. Of course, obviously, Shedeur had that last year with Travis Hunter. Does Salter have that with anyone on this team? We don't really know. But anyway, Salter's sort of timid play, I'll leave it at that, timid play, not poor play. He was 13 for 16, so he was efficient, but just sort of timid. I'll go with that. But anyway, he got benched. They put in the true freshman, Julian Lewis. He only threw the ball 4 times. And then they brought in Ryan Staub, one of those two. And he came in, and he did not play timid at all. He made some big throws. Of course, it's Delaware. So this game was never really close, and this game was never really losable for Colorado. That was never really the concern. And also, Delaware's DBs and linebackers and coverage units and blitz off the edge is a lot worse than what you're really going to see elsewhere. Although they did have 5 sacks. Colorado allowed 5 sacks to Delaware last week, which is rather concerning. But anyway, Staub came in, was 7 for 10 with 158 yards. So he had half the completions of Salter and 56 more yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. So he was not afraid to push the ball down the field. Sincere Brown and Declan Taylor had the touchdowns for Colorado. Sincere Brown had a 71-yard touchdown. That was a great throw. I don't know if you watched that game, and if you probably didn't because it's Colorado Delaware, but Staub made a great throw to Sincere Parker. So it sort of seemed like with Staub in the game, there was more explosiveness to the offense and more rhythm, which is important. Also, sort of an interesting factor here, Micah Welch, or Micah, I think it's Micah Welch, against Georgia Tech, number 29, big running back. He was punishing. He was breaking tackles all over the place. He was a bell cow for that offense against Georgia Tech. He took the brunt of the hits that Georgia Tech delivered and gave as much hit to the Yellow Jack defense. But against Delaware, only 7 carries for 14 yards. And one of those carries was 10 yards. So if you take off his 10-yard carry, it was 6 carries for 4 yards. And if you watched the Georgia Tech game and you saw Micah Welch and you saw what he did, and then you look at his stat line, it doesn't make any sense. This guy was a bowling ball, and he's out here 7 for 14. So I don't know. I'm worried about the consistency with Colorado's offense. Switch it over to Houston, on the other hand. Houston's 2-0. And if you say, they hadn't played anybody. They played, I know they played Rice last week, who beat Louisiana the week before. So, let's not get too mad at Rice here. But let's see. They beat Indiana and Stephen F. Austin, or not Indiana, Stephen F. Austin and Rice going into this game, and they dominated both of those games. 27-0 against Stephen F. Austin, 35-9 against Rice. Houston has Connor Weigman. If you're a diehard college football fan, you know that name. You know that name because of his disappointing time in Texas A&M. But I like Connor Weigman. I like him in the Big 12. Oftentimes you find players that get recruited really, really highly at these big universities, especially at the quarterback position, where it doesn't work out, and they transfer to smaller schools, and the fit really works. That happens all the time. So, I mean, just for an example, in the ACC with Eli Holstein, never really going to get much of a chance at Alabama, transfers to Pitt, and now he's balling. The same could be said about Connor Weigman. But the problem is he's not particularly balling. I mean, against Rice, of course, Houston dominated, 35-9. Weigman was just 15 for 22, 188 yards and a touchdown. Nothing special. And one of those plays, again, a big pass play to Stephon Johnson, the 74-yard touchdown early in that game. So if you negate that one play, which of course negating plays is never really something that we want to do in college football, but if you negate that one play, say he dropped it or he ran the wrong route or Weigman overthrew or underthrew, that's only 114 yards and 0 touchdowns against Rice. So Do I like Connor Weigman? Yeah, I like Weigman. He's got potential. There's some really good traits about him, but I don't know if I trust him to be a consistent, good quarterback in the Big 12, and I don't know if he can will his teams to win. Of course, Dean Connors, transferred from Rice to play at Houston, has been going off this year. He's got over 180 yards rushing over 2 games, had 132 and 2 touchdowns against Rice. He was a little banged up in that game, could be something to look out for, but he got injured in the first part of the game and then came back and then had a 54-yard touchdown run as part of his 2 touchdowns, which helped catapult Houston past Rice. But an interesting thing, I think, about this Houston team was their ability to stop the run against Rice. Rice, this year, as a new coach, wants to run that Navy Army triple option style of offense, which is very unique and very rare and very run heavy, and Houston stuffed it. Rice ran it 53 times. That's a lot. That's a lot of times to run the football, and they only gave up 177 yards rushing, which may seem like a lot, but Rice wants it to where their entire offense is rushing yards, and Houston limited that to 177. I think that's very impressive. Chase Jenkins and Quentin Jackson are their 1 and 2 wide receivers, respectively, and they combined for under 90 yards with over 30 carries. So that's impressive what Houston was able to do to stop the run against Rice. And I know you can say it's Rice, but that's a rivalry game, and that's a team where it's hard to stop that rushing offense. If you don't believe me, watch Rice play at some point. I know it's a lot to ask because it's Rice. No one wants to watch Rice, but they're fun, and they run the ball really, really well, so watch that game. So a lot of positives on both of these sides. Of course, Houston has big recruits coming in for next season's recruiting class. This could be a statement win for the Cougars, kind of like what we saw with Nebraska last year when Colorado went into Nebraska and lost. Unfortunately, I would love Houston to win. I am from Houston. I have good friends that go to Houston. I'm a little biased in this one towards Houston, but I have to go with talent. I have to go with coaching. And I have to go with the team that I think is more suited to go on the road and win this game, and who I believe is more talented, and with Staub has a more dynamic, potentially fire-powered offense. I got Colorado in this game. It's a Friday night game. Should be a lot of fun. That's what this game is. This game isn't going to be stressful. It's not going to be a lot of storylines or anything. This game's going to be fun. This is a college football Friday night game. I'm excited about this one. So I got Colorado. This is me and Will's first disagreement so far. He's got Houston. He says it's a really tough one. He has faith in both quarterbacks. And he's interested in what Ryan Staub is going to do. You know, he gets the start, but he likes Houston and Weigman to come out on top. They are at home. Not a bad pick. I respect that pick. It could go either way. If I was a betting man, I would not touch this game. I would leave it alone. Quick Cabo Bob sip real quick. What I would do for a little smoky cheddar tortilla right about now. Moving on. Couple good 11 o'clock games this week. We're going to focus on a game that I had circled for week 3 that I was excited about. And a game that I have is super, super close one. I don't know who I'm going to pick in this game. I debated for a really long time. The Clemson Tigers lose in week 1 against LSU. Close game, sort of a scrappy game, not sort of, a scrappy game, and they didn't come on top. Of course, they could not run the ball. That was really the main story. Their offense was shut down by LSU's defense, and they could not run the football. That was the main problem, in my opinion, with Clemson's offense. Then we look at Troy, and you're saying, okay, they got Troy next on their schedule. It's at home. We know what happens with these games with Clemson. You know, just like last year. They lose to Georgia. They get blown out in Atlanta against Georgia. Very next week, I think they put up like 49 points in the first half against Appalachian State. So I was expecting something like that. But Clemson comes out and is losing 16-3 at halftime. At halftime, at home to Troy. The Trojans, that you're losing. That was bad. I remember looking at my phone, I'm like, oh boy. And you might say, oh, well, look, they won 27-16. They must have just pulled away and dominated the rest of the way. No worries, right? No, that's not the case with this game. Clemson got handed the victory. Troy threw 3 interceptions in the second half. 2 of which came in like the first 3 minutes of the second half. It was bad. Troy kind of handed them the game. So Clemson hasn't really outright won a game yet. And, of course, respect to them for taking advantage of the opportunity that Troy gave them with those turnovers. But this is an interesting game because if you can't run the ball against Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech's run defense is pretty good. If you can't run the ball against Georgia Tech, and you have to ask Cade Klubnik to go out there and win the game, I don't know if he can do that. I don't think we've seen him do that yet. That's not the type of quarterback Cade Klubnik is. He's a great athlete. He can make great throws. He's an NFL caliber player. But when you ask Cade Klubnik to throw the ball 50 times a game because you can't run the ball, that's a recipe for a disaster. So that is the scary zone. That's the sketchy area for Clemson if they cannot run the ball once again, because they have had no identity whatsoever on offense. Now Georgia Tech, on the other hand, they can run the football. You think Haynes King can't go out and win a game? You gotta watch. Again, I know I've been talking about these two teams a lot because they played each other and I have them on my list, but the Georgia Tech Colorado game, Haynes King was all over the place. He struggled at the very beginning of the game. A lot of that was sort of the start of the year and sort of, breaking in a new offense. And there's going to be mistakes when you do that. But after those first 3 or 4 drives, Haynes King was an animal the whole rest of the game. And he sealed the game on a really long touchdown run. And really in the second half, you could see Brent Key. I was watching. You could sort of see Key, his thought process. It was, wow, this team's struggling. This offense is struggling. They're stuck. They don't really know what to do. We're gonna get rid of all the bells and the whistles. We're gonna just get simple. We're gonna put the ball in Haynes King's hands and we're gonna run the ball down your throat. And that's their identity. That's Georgia Tech's identity on offense. Does Clemson have an identity on offense? If they do, we haven't seen it yet. Now, could it be the case that this is their breakout game on offense? Yes, it could be. But I just think this game's gonna be so close. In my power ratings, I have Clemson at 18 and Georgia Tech at 19. That's how close I am with those two teams. And I think I'm a little, in retrospect, in relation to the rest of the college football media, I think I'm a little higher on Georgia Tech than most people and a little lower on Clemson. So you say that, and you say, okay, well, that obviously means you're going to pick Georgia Tech, right? I really hope they win. I will be cheering for Georgia Tech. I'll be in Bryant-Denny Stadium watching Alabama play Wisconsin, and I will have the Georgia Tech game on my phone because I have been so excited to watch this game, and I love Haynes King more than I love anyone in college football. I really hope that guy wins. He deserves to win more than anybody else. But I have to pick Clemson in this game. Their defense is so much better than anything Georgia Tech has faced this year. Could Georgia Tech be prepared for that? Yes, Haynes King has seen this before, but I think this is the game that Clemson breaks out of its shell offensively. I think Clemson wins. I think it's going to be a close game. I could go either way on this one, really, but I'm going with the talent and the coaching once again with the road team. And I've got Clemson winning this game. Another one that me and Will disagree on. Will says, originally I had Georgia Tech before the season started. I'm going to keep that pick. Give me Georgia Tech. Haynes King makes some plays. Defense holds firm, and I like the Jackets to pull off the upset. Going to be so good. I agree. It's going to be so good. That game's going to be amazing. And I don't disagree with anything he's saying. This is a game where anything could happen. Haynes King could make some big plays late. In fact, I expect him to make some big plays late. But I just think Clemson's too talented. It's so tough to pick against this Clemson team in the ACC because they've been so good for so many years in this conference. One of my favorite games of the year, I think, could be this Georgia Tech Clemson game. I wish I was in Atlanta to watch it. It's going to be awesome. Give me Clemson. Will's got Georgia Tech. On to the next. And this next one, a lot of people are saying is the marquee matchup of the week. College Game Day will be there. First time College Game Day has been on Rocky Top since the Volunteers knocked off the Crimson Tide 52-49 with the help of Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. The Georgia Bulldogs, the 2-0, reigning SEC champion Georgia Bulldogs, not the, we struggled with Austin Peay Georgia Bulldogs. The Kirby Smart-led Georgia Bulldogs are dogging on in to Knoxville to face Tennessee. Now, Tennessee has been the subject of a lot of conversation during the offseason and during the first couple weeks of the year, and rightfully so. This game started at 7.5 was the line. Georgia was favored as the road team, as the higher ranked team. They were favored by 7.5. So many people bet Tennessee that it went down to 3.5. That's what the spread is at right now. That's crazy. So what that tells me is that everyone likes Tennessee in this game. Everyone is doubting Kirby Smart. That is a recipe for a disaster. I don't know. Starting with Georgia. Yes, you played Marshall and Austin Peay, and yes, we saw Florida State win 77-3. We saw Alabama win 73-0. We saw Oregon win 69-3, and then we saw Georgia win 28-6 at home against Austin Peay. And I think people were concerned about that. They were saying, hey, all these other elite teams, they're winning by 70 points. What are you doing? Winning by 22 against Austin Peay. I hear that. I do. But to be frankly honest, it goes in one ear and out the other. I'm not worried about Georgia at all. I think this team is elite. The amount of talent, the amount of depth that they have is elite. They haven't lost to Tennessee, I think, since the days of the Roman Empire. Or it might be, I think when Moses and the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, I think that the year before that was the last time Tennessee beat Georgia. I think. My history is a little shaky there, but Kirby Smart has owned the Volunteers ever since that fateful day when Josh Jacobs sent up a prayer to Juwan Jennings. Awesome play, by the way. That game was so awesome. I think 2016, Tennessee went into Athens and just pulled off a miracle, which, as a college football fan, you always love to see that. But here in 2025, Josh Heupel has a team that is led by Joey Aguilar. And now everyone, including me, going into the season was like, oh, I've never heard of this Joey Aguilar guy. He's coming from Appalachian State. He was not very good at Appalachian State. What's going to happen? He was supposed to play at UCLA, and then Nico transfers to UCLA, and Josh Heupel pulls a fast one and grabs Aguilar from the Bruins. And all of a sudden, he goes out and, beats Syracuse. And then he goes out and hangs 72 on East Tennessee State. And now everyone's talking about Joey Aguilar as like the best quarterback in the history of Tennessee. Like everyone is saying he's so good. It's like, oh my gosh, Joey Aguilar, man, he's so unbelievably good. I haven't really necessarily seen that yet from Joey Aguilar, if I'm being completely honest. It still holds true. I mean, the fact that he came from Appalachian State, the fact that he hasn't played in big-time SEC football games still remains to be true. That hasn't changed yet. He hasn't played an SEC game. In fact, the hardest game that he played against was Syracuse. I don't know if y'all remember, but Syracuse damn near lost to UConn last week. So I'm still, going into the year, I was not very excited about Tennessee this year. I thought they were going to go 8-4, 7-5. I still believe that. I'm not saying the Tennessee team is bad. I think Josh Heupel is one of the best coaches in the SEC. I've said that over and over and over again. I don't know how, he took Tennessee from the dumpster fire that it was in and brought it to one of the best programs in college football. It's so impressive to me. And the most impressive part was how well they were able to run the ball. That's what they've been able to do on offense. Ever since Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, and Cedric Tillman left, Tennessee has ran the ball like better than almost every team in the SEC. And that's what they did against Syracuse. Syracuse, they had 246 yards rushing. And Joey Aguilar was 16 for 28. I don't know where the Joey Aguilar hype is coming from, to be completely honest. I think the only reason that we're hyped up about Joey Aguilar is because Josh Heupel is a mastermind. That is the only reason I think we're hyped up on Joey Aguilar. I don't see him making big plays in this game against this Georgia defense. A Georgia defense, by the way, that has allowed 12 points all year. If my math is correct, did they beat Marshall 45? I don't remember how they beat Marshall. Well, jock up in the math departments, let me know real quick. Really? Okay, yeah, it was 12. So this Georgia defense is elite. It's Kirby Smart defense. We know what that brings. I don't trust Joey Aguilar on third downs. I don't trust him to be consistent. I don't trust him to be efficient. I don't think the passing game is going to be there. I mean, we're talking about a Tennessee team that last year had better, more depth at wide receiver, more experience at wide receiver, and a quarterback that was way more talented. And they could not throw the ball against Georgia last year. Georgia shut them down. Obviously, you had the script. You had the first couple drives for Tennessee that went really well. And then after that, it was just, Josh Heupel gave Nico the tools, and Nico fumbled. I don't see how Joey Aguilar does not fumble. Also, just interesting, things to think about for Tennessee. They're without Jermod McCoy. They're without Ricky Gibson. They are banged up in the secondary. I don't see how Tennessee wins this game, to be completely honest. I hope it happens because it'd be really cool. It's always awesome to see Tennessee win a big game on Rocky Top because those fans are really, they're cool. That stadium is cool. That atmosphere is one of the best in the sport, so I hope it happens. But I just don't see it. I think Gunnar Stockton is such a leader. That's what I've been hearing all offseason from their camp and just all season, really, is that he is a leader. Of course, we haven't really seen Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas and Dylan Bell light it up with him yet, but this could be the game against an injured Tennessee secondary. I think Georgia is so much more talented. I think they're so much more experienced. I don't see Tennessee having it. I've got Georgia by double digits in this game. It might just be my relentless faith in Kirby Smart. I just don't think Tennessee is a very elite team in the SEC. Should be an awesome game. I've got Georgia. Will thinks it's very intriguing. He says Joey Aguilar is the real deal in the vault. See, I just don't understand where that's coming from. I don't understand why people are saying he's the real deal after, the offseason, everyone was saying that he was overrated and he wasn't going to do anything because he hasn't proved anything. I don't think he's proved anything yet. But he says Joey Aguilar's the real deal and the Vols can still run the ball super effectively. Very true. Vols just match up into what Georgia wants you to do, and that's part of why this has been such a lopsided series with Kirby. So I think he has Georgia winning this game. As do I. Again, fascinating matchup. If Tennessee wants to win this game, they're going to have to make Gunnar Stockton uncomfortable, and they're going to have to run the ball for 300 yards. I don't see that happening, so I got Georgia double digits. Next up, we got a fun one. We got Pitt, West Virginia. Who doesn't love a little Pitt, West Virginia? A little backyard brawl action. Who doesn't love some of that? That's college football right there, man. That's the fun stuff. To me, this is an easy pick. I got Pitt. I got Eli Holstein. I got Desmond Reed. I got those great linebackers on Pittsburgh. I love the way they blitz their linebackers. It's so weird and unique, but it works. I think both their middle linebackers had 7 sacks and 6 sacks last year, which is crazy from that position. That doesn't happen. I think they're going to make West Virginia uncomfortable. West Virginia lost to somebody last week. I forget who it was. I think it might have been Ohio. It was a team like that. They lost to a mid-major. I think Pitt's going to win this game. I think it's going to be fun. It's the backyard brawl. We got to have the backyard brawl on here. Come on. Will has Pitt. He thinks it's going to be close for a while, but he's got a lot of confidence in Eli Holstein and Desmond Reed. West Virginia could have gotten a wake-up call losing to Ohio last week, though. It was Ohio. Boom! I got that right. That's my college football. I don't remember anything about math stuff, but I remember about college football. I do have a math test tomorrow, but it's really easy. I'm going to get 100 on that. I got Pitt. Will's got Pitt. Tune in. It's backyard brawl. It should be fun. Next game is the game that I am. Actually, I don't know because I'm so excited about so many of these games. This is going to be such an awesome week. Next game is Arkansas at Ole Miss. It's Woo Pig Zooey versus Hotty Toddy. It's Fayetteville versus Oxford. It's Taylon Green versus Austin Simmons. It's Bobby Petrino against Lane Kiffin. How exciting of a matchup is that? Last year was fireworks. I think last year Ole Miss might have gotten north of 60 on Arkansas, and Arkansas didn't get shut down themselves. I forget what the exact score of that game was last year, but it was like 60 something to 40 something. It was wild. We'll see what happens in this game. Obviously, Ole Miss is coming off a big road win at Kentucky. A game where Simmons threw a couple of bad interceptions early. It was not the greatest thing to see, but maybe those are all out of his system. Who knows? A lot of people are really split on Ole Miss. I've heard people say, "Oh, Ole Miss is elite, man. You know how they're always going to be elite under Lane Kiffin. Austin Simmons, this kid, we've heard great things about him. We saw him play for 4 seconds against Georgia, and now we're all crazy about him. This Ole Miss team, man, they're going places." And then I've also heard people say, this Ole Miss team, man, I don't know. They struggle too much against Kentucky. I don't know. I don't think they have it. I think people focus way too much on the offense of Ole Miss, and they ignore the defense. Defensively last year, Ole Miss was awesome. That's what made their team great, in my opinion. I think their offense held them back a lot last year, but their defense was elite, and they lost a lot of what made that defense so elite. And we saw some of that in the Kentucky game. They didn't dominate that game. Just straight up, it was close most of the time. Kentucky had a lead in the second half, too. It's really not like Ole Miss just absolutely ran away with this. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. I really love Arkansas's offense. A big advantage Ole Miss has over Arkansas in this game is that they've already been tested. They've already played an SEC game. They've already sort of had a chance to lose and then overcame that, especially on the road. This is the first time Arkansas is going on the road. This is the first time they're playing against a team that's not Arkansas State, where Taylon Green's going to snap his fingers and throw for 6 touchdowns. Dog on fantasy, by the way. College football fantasy, Taylon Green has been carrying my team. I'm dominating right now because of Taylon Green. Let's see if I can get ESPN to load the stats from the Ole Miss game. I would love to say this game's going to be high scoring. I believe it's going to be high scoring. I don't really see a way that it's not high scoring. The only reason I could see that it's not high scoring is that Austin Simmons just doesn't produce. Like, I think if it's not high scoring, it's not because Arkansas doesn't score a lot of points. It's because Ole Miss doesn't score a lot of points. To be frankly honest, I don't think Ole Miss is as good this year as people think they are on offense. Just looking at their roster. I mean, Arkansas, I had some concerns with Arkansas' secondary going into this year. That could be a plus for Ole Miss. They could take advantage of that. But we haven't really seen their wide receivers go off yet in the way that would lead to them really taking advantage of an inexperienced secondary. I think this game is very interesting because I think it's a night game, it's in Oxford, and it's going to be high scoring. It's going to be fun to watch. Will has Ole Miss in this game. Will thinks that Ole Miss is the better team, and he's got him by double digits, I believe. And I understand that. Again, Lane Kiffin, great coach. I don't want to take anything away from Lane Kiffin. I've been leaning back and forth on this game a lot. I've got Arkansas winning this game. I've got Arkansas going into Ole Miss and upsetting the Rebels, which is crazy. It's weird to say that because it just doesn't feel like that's going to happen. I mean, Ole Miss could control this game. They could run the ball really, really well with Kawan Lacey and Austin Simmons and sort of control it time of possession-wise. That's the main concern for me if I'm an Arkansas fan. But I really like Taylon Green. I really like this offense. This Bobby Petrino offense has been legit. The entire time that it's existed under Bobby Petrino, they've been electric and they've been dangerous. And I think that manifests itself here. I mean, Omega Blake is a great wide receiver. This offensive line is dynamic. Braylon Russell has been a good running back. I like Arkansas in this game. Woo Pig Zooey, I hope it happens. Arkansas, it's so fun to me when Arkansas is good. So I got the Razorbacks winning a huge one. on the road in Ole Miss. Prime time on ESPN. Our next game, moving on. 3:30 game, not a 2:30 game, if we're talking about Central Time, folks. Not 2:30, but 3:30 Central Time. The South Florida Bulls, whom some may say are the story of college football this year, go on the road to face Miami. I know what you're thinking. Oh, South Florida going on the road, facing a powerful, big-time school in Florida. There's no way. Well, we saw it happen last week, and last week was crazy. Last week, I don't know. I was weirded out by Florida last week. I really was. They were trying to do too much the whole game. They kept trying to take the top off the defense. They kept trying to just blitz and make big plays happen. On offense and defense, they played way too aggressively, in my opinion. They were undisciplined. They had a lot of penalties. And towards the end of the game, South Florida, you could see, they just had a will about them. They saw their destination. They saw their goal. And they just wouldn't be stopped. And frankly, Florida, it didn't look like had a goal. So when I look at this game, South Florida, Miami, yes, South Florida's great. They've been great on defense all year. I mean, great on defense. And then offensively, Byron Brown is capable of making plays. Those running backs can break tackles, especially out of the backfield. They can make plays. But when I look at Miami in comparison to Florida, Miami isn't overly aggressive. They have a very smart, very mature, very wise and efficient quarterback who knows how to win these games, much more than DJ Lagway does. They've got a running game that's much more consistent than Florida's. They're disciplined. They don't get penalized. They have wide receivers that can make plays when needed to, but they don't need to rely on them to. And then defensively, they're very disciplined. And if you don't think that Miami defense has a will, has a goal, has a desire to dominate, then you must not have watched that Notre Dame game. I think this is a bad matchup for South Florida. I've got Miami plus the points. I think they're favored by 17.5. Give me Miami and give Miami to cover, which does feel bad because South Florida and Mississippi State are like the two feel-good stories of the year so far. So I'm sad picking against the Bulls. Not as sad as I am about the fact that this game is on the CW network. That is a travesty. I strongly dislike that network. I mean, they're garbage. If you've seen a game on CW, if you watched TCU Baylor last week, you'll know what I'm talking about because every time there's a field goal, the camera angle is so buns. It's atrocious. So I'm not excited to watch that game. In fact, I might not even watch it. I might just watch Backyard Brawl in Georgia, Tennessee, so I don't have to stare at the CW network nonsense. Enough on my rant there. Also, how awesome is it that South Florida is number 17 in the country? They get to play Miami. This is an awesome game. I can't wait for it. It's going to be fun. At least the hype for it will be fun. And leading into it will be fun. But, yeah, Miami to cover, in my personal, unprofessional opinion. Will has got, I believe he has South Florida. No, I believe he has Miami. He didn't pick this one. All right, well, I'm just gonna write you up for South Florida because, not South Florida, Miami. I'm gonna write you up for Miami because I don't think you were to pick South Florida. In terms of meaning in this game, if South Florida wins this game, they might just lock themselves up a playoff spot. Rightfully so. I mean, if they beat Miami, they would have beaten 3 ranked teams. That's crazy. If Miami wins this game, okay. So that is another interesting fact, is if Miami doesn't have nearly as much on the line as South Florida does, so that could play into this also. But moving on to another night game in Death Valley, Florida, the team I just talked about, goes on the road to play LSU. Now, you might have just sat back and heard all of the terrible things I said about Florida, about how they can't run the ball, about how they're too reliant on big plays, about how DJ Lagway doesn't know how to win games, about how they were undisciplined and they didn't have a will. I think a lot of that is going to change, if I'm being completely honest. I do believe in the talent of this Florida team, especially on defense. This defense is great. I think that Florida is going to have a total shift in mindset. This is a breaking point for Billy Napier and his legacy at Florida, in a very similar way that it's a breaking point for Kalen DeBoer and his legacy at Alabama, because there's been a tragedy, a loss to a Florida team. Now, are you going to develop from this? Are you going to use this loss to improve, to strengthen the will of your team, to garner a better attitude and a culture? Or are you going to lie over and give up like Florida State did last year? That's the question. I really like Billy Napier, so I think Florida is going to bounce back from this. I think that they're still a great team. I don't think that's changed. They need to be more disciplined if they want to win this game. They need to be more consistent on offense, meaning not to rely on DJ Lagway to make big plays all the time. They need to want to win, and I really, really think they want to win this game. So I think Florida's going to make this much closer than people think. I think this game's going to be low scoring. I think that if it's high scoring, it'll be in terms of LSU sort of dominating. But I've got this game being low scoring. LSU also hasn't really developed much consistency on offense. It sort of seems like the receivers haven't gelled as much as they thought they would. I described this LSU passing game in the offseason as a pro-level passing game because of the uniqueness of their wide receivers, of the style and the skills of Garrett Nussmeier. And to be honest, their offensive line has gelled together better than you would have really expected. But something's off with this LSU offense. They're not as consistent as you would have hoped. And so is Florida. So this is a really interesting matchup. That's why I think it's going to be low scoring. At the end, I trust LSU's defense. I really do. I think this defense is so good. So much better than the Wars last year because of the transfer portal people that they brought in, because of the new coaching. So I like LSU because I like their defense. I think LSU's defense wins them this game once again. I think it's going to be close. I've got LSU winning a close game. But again, Florida could win this game. I'm not out here saying LSU's going to blow them out. That's not the take that I have. I picked LSU to beat Clemson. Now I'm picking them to beat Florida. Will begs the question, what Florida will we see? A better Florida, he predicts. Will thinks they're going to improve. But he still likes the Tigers at home in Death Valley. Brian Kelly has one loss in night games there, and I think LSU wins by double digits due to their dominance up front. I disagree with the dominance up front part. I don't see the dominance that LSU has up front on Florida. I don't think that a lot of teams dominate Florida up front. But I just love LSU's defense to lock this offense down. I got LSU 13-10. That's how low scoring I think this game's going to be. I think it's going to be in the mud. Our next big night game, another fascinating one, another one that we've been looking forward to all offseason. Texas A&M on the road at Notre Dame. Now, if you've watched any of our offseason videos about the SEC or anything that has to do with Texas A&M, I've been so high on Texas A&M all season long because they have an identity. They run the football. That's what they do. They have an unbelievably good offensive line. Best offensive line in the SEC, in my personal opinion. And their running backs, they go 4 deep at running back. And Marcel Reed has been playing smart. He has 8 total touchdowns and 0 turnovers. That is smart football. That's what they need him to play. If things go the way A&M want them to go, they don't win games by Marcel Reed making crazy plays and putting the team on his back. That's not his role. His role is to be efficient. His role is to be safe with the football and make plays on third down when necessary. Not every third down. Not every first down is a third down with this A&M team. In fact, most third downs seem to be like first downs. What I mean by that is they stay ahead of schedule. They stay ahead of the chains. They don't give up negative plays very often. and they have consistency and identity in their offense, which is important. And we saw that a lot last year. The problem with A&M, especially last year, even if you look at the numbers, was their defense, especially towards the end of the year. And I feel like people wouldn't have really expected that. More specifically, I've got it over here somewhere. The stats from A&M's defense. Here they are. They were 12th in the SEC in yards per game allowed. They were 11th in points per game allowed. I feel like everyone was talking about A&M like, oh, what a great rebuild this was. Mike Elko's defense is crazy. He's a defensive genius. What are these young quarterbacks going to do against Elko's defensive genius? I haven't seen Elko's defensive genius at Texas A&M yet. To be completely honest, I haven't seen it. Is it there? It could very well be, but I haven't seen it yet. Especially this year, even they gave up 22 to Utah State and 24 to UTSA. That's not great. They got punked by Auburn last year because they put up a bunch of points. South Carolina ran the ball down their throats last year. So I don't trust this A&M defense like I trust this A&M offense, which I never thought I would be saying with Mike Elko as the head coach. Does he have a chance to prove me wrong? Yes, he does. He has the talent to prove me wrong. This A&M roster is unbelievably talented. Elko's done a great job of roster retention and transfer portal acquisition since he's gotten there. It's been great. I love Torian York. I love Scooby Williams. This linebacker core is awesome. Crownover, a lot of people really, really like him too. I don't know how much I really buy into his hype, but actually he's a right tackle. Cassius Howell is who I'm thinking of. He had 4 sacks last year. A lot of NFL draft guys really, really like him. I don't know if I buy into him yet. I haven't really seen much from him. This secondary should be elite, yet they got torched a couple times last game. When I look at Notre Dame, I just see dreams, and I think there's so much potential with this Notre Dame, especially on offense. I really, really like this Notre Dame offense. I think that with the right coaching, with the right development, they could be so much more electric than they have been the last couple of years. Of course, you got to start with CJ Carr, and a lot of people are saying, oh, CJ Carr, he was cautious last game. He didn't do much. To me, that was the coaching. They called a lot of RPOs against Miami, a lot of easy throws, and RPOs is the run pass option, and a lot of the times Miami was really keen on stopping the run, which is why that we saw so many screen passes Jordan Faison and the rest of the Notre Dame receivers. But I don't think we're going to see as much of that against Texas A&M. I think that this team with the Marcus Freeman and the offensive coordinators and what they want to do, they're going to start giving Carr more freedom. They're going to start giving him more control of the offense. And I think that's going to open up a lot of awesome things. First of all, towards the end of the second half against Miami, CJ Carr was making great plays. We saw the potential of what CJ Carr could be. I was saying all offseason, it's not really a step back from Riley Leonard. You lose the great football player Riley Leonard was and the great athlete he was, but CJ Carr has so much more potential than Riley Leonard ever had, in my opinion. They need to get the ball to Jeremiah Love as much as they can. I think giving Carr more freedom allows Jeremiah Love to also be utilized better. But he's way too talented to get 11 carries. Way too talented. He's a psycho. Jeremiah Love is a psycho. I swear, every other play he tries to jump over 3 dudes. It's awesome. If you haven't watched an entertaining college football running back, go watch Jeremiah Love. Just Google Jeremiah Love highlights. It's unbelievable. You've never seen anything like it. And he wasn't even really that highly recruited of a guy. They need to get him the ball more. I think that this Notre Dame offense has the potential to light it up against A&M, which is weird because that's not what they did at all last year. What they did last year well, though, was they ran the ball at the end of the game. I trust Notre Dame a lot more than I trust A&M in closing out a game. I trust CJ Carr more than I trust Marcel Reed on third down. I think this game is a little higher scoring than people think, but I've got Notre Dame winning, I think 34-24. That's what I got. Huge game. This would be 2 in a row for Notre Dame over Texas A&M over the last couple of years, which would be pretty impressive. Will starts us out with saying, gosh, week 3 is stacked. Yes, it is. He says he thinks Notre Dame has woken up with the loss to Miami. Very well could have gone their way without some turnovers. I think Miami kind of punked him in that game. I kind of disagree with this. But anyway, he also thinks they lean on Jeremiah Love a whole lot more as they should have in week 1. Irish by double digits. I've also got the Irish by double digits, barely. I would kind of be surprised if they won by double digits, but I'm picking it to happen. Which doesn't make much sense, but college football doesn't make much sense, so, pick your poison at that point. All right. Lastly, we got 2 more games, and these are the 2 games that I am most excited about this week. We'll start off with the one in the SEC, on the SEC Network, 6:45 Central Time. Vanderbilt at South Carolina. Wow, this game is fascinating. South Carolina, of course, if you're a South Carolina fan, you know that you boat raced Vanderbilt last year. I mean, absolutely dusted them last year in Columbia. Also, South Carolina has beaten Vanderbilt 16 times in a row. That's a lot. That's a lot of times in a row. But also, if you're Vanderbilt, you just saw yourself put up 34 unanswered points in the second half against Virginia Tech. You saw yourself outgain Virginia Tech by over 300 yards, not in the game, but in the second half. That was one of the most dominant halves of football I have seen ever from Vanderbilt. In fact, it probably is. It's not crazy to say. That is the most dominant half that I have seen in my entire 19-year life from the Vanderbilt Commodores. It was unreal. It was on the road. It was against a Virginia Tech team that I really like. And it was against a Virginia Tech team that went toe-to-toe with South Carolina. And that game was 10-8 going into the 4th quarter. I mean, Virginia Tech dominated South Carolina on defense. South Carolina couldn't do anything. The only reason South Carolina scored was one big pass play to Nick Harbor, one big-time scramble from Lenora Sellers, and a punt return. If you negate those 3 big plays, neck and neck. And you know who's really good at negating big plays? Vanderbilt. So this game is such an interesting matchup. Of course, Vanderbilt wants to control time of possession. If they want to win this game, they got to be elite on 3rd down. Diego Pavia has to make plays. They got to run the ball. Do I think they can do it? Yes. I've gone back and forth on this game so many times. Again, I love this Vanderbilt team. I've loved them last year. I love their story. Diego Pavia talks a lot of trash. A lot of people, bash him for that. I don't. Keep talking your trash, Diego Pavia, because you are backing it up. My heart of hearts, my inner self, my soul of souls, my sanctum sanctorum wants Vanderbilt to win this game so badly. But I have to pick South Carolina. I have to. It's a night game. It's in Williams-Brice. They've won 16 years in a row. They're infinitely more talented. I have to. It goes against every bone in my body. I think my arms are shaking because I want to pick Vanderbilt so bad. But I can't. I have to pick South Carolina in this game. Just because of they're just more talented. It's a matter of they're the better team. They just are the better team. But you know what? Listen, it would not shock me at all if Vanderbilt went in there, if Diego Pavia started off slow and then dominated the rest of the way. Because South Carolina is not a great offensive team. Who could have seen this coming, guys, that South Carolina's offense wasn't going to be very good? Who on earth could have figured that one out? Because their wide receivers can't do anything. I don't know. This game can go either way. Will says that he's not been very impressed with South Carolina. Okay, Will, I see where you're coming from. Maybe it's their time to come out and show what they've truly got. I think they've kind of already showed what they truly got against Virginia Tech, which was not very much. He likes Vandy. I love that. Great pick, Will. I really hope that happens. I think they're built for this. They are built for this. Diego Pavia is built for anything. He loves them coming off a dominating road game and thinks they have another good one. Give me the Doors. I will be cheering my heart out for the Doors. Maybe on this couch. I don't know if I'll be on this couch. Maybe that couch. Maybe a friend's couch. Maybe somewhere else. I don't know. I don't really have plans for Saturday night yet. I'm going to figure that out. but I've got South Carolina, but I'll be cheering for Vanderbilt. And now comes the game that I circled on the schedule the minute I figured out that it was going to be on 9:30 kickoff on ESPN. If you've tuned in to our college football playoff predictions, if you've tuned in to listen to who I think the sleeper team is, not only in the Big Ten, but in all of college football this year, you'll know that there is no man on this earth other than maybe PJ Fleck who is more excited about the Minnesota Golden Gophers this year than I am. My full allegiance is with Minnesota. I love Minnesota for so many reasons. First of all, the defense. They have so much talent on all three levels of the defense. Anthony Smith can get after a quarterback. Linebacker position is experienced. They got Jeff Robertson from Oklahoma State. They know how to win football games at the linebacker position, and their secondary is loaded. If you've heard of one player from Minnesota, you've probably heard of Coy Parrish. I'm here to tell you that Coy Parrish is just one of many dominant players on this Minnesota defensive unit, especially in the secondary. This secondary is scary good. I mean, yeah, Coy Parrish is good, but so is Kerry Brown. I mean, he was just as good as Coy Parrish was last year, just not as high of a recruit. Maverick Baranowski, dog at the linebacker position. He's talented, he's experienced. I love this Minnesota team, and they can run the ball with Darius Taylor, with DJ Turner. These two running backs are talented, they're big, they're experienced, they know how to run the ball, they know how to catch the ball out of the backfield to help Drake Lindsey, the freshman quarterback, who hasn't been elite thus far, but he's been good. This is your first road test. You're going on the road, you're going at Cal. Cal's got a man by the name of, forgive me, Jaron Kwaye Sagapatole. No, that's not right. Sagapolutele. I'm just going to call him JKS. JKS. Quarterback from Cal. That man can spin it. He makes great throws. But I'm here to tell you the game is much more than the quarterback position. And I think that Minnesota is going to take away all of JSK's weapons. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well. I don't think that they're going to be able to throw the ball very well downfield because their receivers are going to be blanketed by this elite Minnesota secondary. And it's so hard as a quarterback to go out there and try and win the game on your own, especially when Anthony Smith is coming after you. I mean, that dude, that guy will get home. Redshirt junior, 4-star recruit, that guy will get to you. So I've got Minnesota in this game. This is the first test for my baby Gophers, man. For my child, for my firstborn son, Minnesota. And I can't wait to watch it. I will be up as long as it takes. I will stay up until 4 a.m. in the morning if I have to watch this Minnesota game. I got so excited. I love the late night games. A lot of people say, oh, it's late night, no one watches. When I get done watching the 6:30 games, there better be another game waiting for me. And there is this week with Minnesota Cal. I can't wait. I got Minnesota with all of my heart and my soul. I got Minnesota winning by 300 points. Will has Cal. Will has Cal just because I don't like Minnesota. I know that's true. He says he doesn't see Minnesota beating Cal on the road. You know, Cal lost like everything last year, but whatever. Love what the Bears have done in the passing game thus far. It ain't happening against Minnesota, my friend. That's the one I'm passionate about. That's the game I'm most excited about. Last week, it was Vandy, Virginia Tech. This week, it's Minnesota, Cal. And it was hard to pick that one because there's so many good games this week. Honestly, if you're busy, if you have, stuff going on, sure, do that stuff. But just know that you're missing out on a slate. You're missing out on so many awesome games in this week 3. From Colorado to Houston to Clemson, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Tennessee. I mean, we have so many good games. So many good games. It's Brent Key and Haynes King's, moments. It's Rocky Top finally getting a chance to beat Georgia at home. It's backyard brawl. It's the story of the year, South Florida going at Miami, who's been amazing thus far. It's Bobby Petrino in maybe Sam Pittman's last ride going on the road to face the Lane Train. It's Florida and LSU with TJ Lagway and Garrett Nussmeier. It's the rematch between the Aggies and the Irish. Such a battle last year that we're going to be able to see in South Bend of all places. It's Vandy, it's Diego Pavia, Lenore Sellers under the lights in South Carolina. And it's Minnesota at Cal to finish it all off. I cannot wait for Saturday. It's going to be lit. Thank you so much for being here, for watching. If you've watched thus far, that definitely means that you are just as excited as I am about this. And I hope you got a great week ahead of you. Enjoy watching college football this weekend or next weekend and the weekend after that. Go make somebody smile today, this weekend, whenever you get a chance. And pray for the people in your lives because they always need it. And just God bless. And I will see y'all in the next podcast. Peace out.